Hi everyone and welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to give you the ship intro in a nutshell kind of way, because the Have You Noticed Something chapter turned out to be a bit longer than usual. So, the Grafspee, German tier 6 very heavy premium cruiser that basically has two defining characteristics. First, the guns. 283mm of phallic dominance, as the one known as Euro put it a long time ago in his How to Grafspee video. These guns have very questionable accuracy, and so the dispersion will troll you a lot, but if they hit, they can slap really hard. And it can be very frustrating if you're unlucky with dispersion, because if one salvo wasn't great, you have to wait 20 seconds to have another go. So the DPM on those guns is absolutely terrible. On the bright side though, this makes it all the more satisfying if the guns actually hit and do a ton of damage. Second characteristic of this ship, for a cruiser it's very tanky. I'm running Survivability Expert on this ship, and as you can see in the lower left corner, that gives me a whopping 42,100 HP to trade, which rivals some battleships of the same tier. Also, you get 16mm of bow and stern plating, meaning you can bounce 356mm shells. On top of that, the other parts of the hull are covered in at least 25mm of plating, including the deck, and you also get a heal. So all in all, the Grafspee is a very tanky ship, for a cruiser, that can stay in the fight for a long time and will typically require dedicated and focused effort by the enemy team to take down. Of course, the Grafspee was pulled from the premium store a long time ago, and yes, you've heard that right, when the Grafspee was removed from regular sale, there wasn't even an armor yet, only the premium store. She's probably available through some containers nowadays, so in typical wargaming fashion, you could probably get the ship by throwing lots of money, and buying lots of containers and hoping for the best, but the question is, should you? In my opinion, not really. I mean, the Grafspee is a great little ship, and I enjoy playing her, but she's not overpowered or busted by any stretch of the imagination, despite having these massive guns and despite having her tankiness, so she's worth the money only if you're a collector of historic ships. Alright, let's move on to today's little Have You Noticed Something rant. Have you noticed that gym women nowadays are absolutely ridiculous? And if I say gym women, I obviously don't mean just, women hitting the gym. I mean young women hitting the gym in clothes that really just cover the bare necessities, but who will report you for harassment or something if you dare to even just take a peek at them, because that's what makes them feel uncomfortable. So girls, let me get this straight. If you choose to wear the tightest and tiniest bits of fabric you were able to get your hands on, and thus basically advertise your most private bits and pieces to the entire gym, that doesn't make you feel uncomfortable, but a guy taking so much as a peek does? Yeah, right, that makes perfect sense, really, yeah, perfectly obvious. But it gets better, of course. A guy looking at you, the young gym woman, will of course only make you feel uncomfortable if you don't find him attractive. If you do find him attractive, you actually want him to look at you. Obviously, the clues you're sending to let him know you find him attractive are incredibly vague and can easily be misunderstood. Yet, if a guy misinterprets them and dares to come over and say hi, despite that you don't actually find him attractive, you'll just humiliate him in front of everyone. And if these aren't already really stupid and pointless and ignorant things to do, you then go online and complain to your little feminist bubble that no guy in the gym ever reaches out to you. Yeah, right. Again, that makes... yeah, that just makes perfect sense, doesn't it? I want to convey a little story to you that unfolded on past Tuesday. Well, past Tuesday at the time of recording this. Let's just say it unfolded the other day. I'm a very frequent visitor to the local gym, and on past Tuesday / the other day, a very attractive young woman was there, and what she wore pretty much defined a new level of revealing. If I described her outfit to you in detail, YouTube would probably go ahead and classify this video as softcore pornography and put, an age restriction on it or something. So I'll give you just a summary, okay? Her bottom was quote unquote covered by pants so short, in another day and age that that would have been classified as lingerie. And as a top, she wore a black piece of fabric that, how do I describe this? It was the kind of tiny piece of fabric that makes you look at her and think, girl, at this point, you might just pop them out, because that's what they're about to do anyway. One wrong movement, and they're all out in the open. I started observing how she behaves around other men, and in particular, how other men behave around her, okay? And this was pretty late in the day, like, we're talking, 8 p.m. or something, and when it's that late in the day, our gym is populated mostly by guys. So you would have assumed she was getting lots of attention. And she just didn't. I mean, the other men just kind of acknowledged her presence, like they would have noticed the presence of any other human being or, the presence of a poodle or something. And that was about it. No one really took a long look at her, let alone reach out and actually say hi, or do something like, hey, do you need those weights? Or how many sets you got left, something like that. She just didn't receive the attention she wanted and probably also expected, and you could tell she was really confused because in her mind this didn't make sense, right? She's the kind of young woman who'll have like a public Instagram profile and post pictures of herself in revealing clothes, and then all the weak men out there, all the beta cucks, all the simps would drop her likes and comment how beautiful and how gorgeous she is, etc., etc. So online she gets lots of attention, but then ventures out into the real world, and basically what happens is that no one gives a shit. And this is where it gets annoying. There are lots of young women currently out there complaining online that they don't get approached by guys anymore, not just in the gym, but generally. It almost seems as if the average modern white narcissistic woman has no ability whatsoever to comprehend the relation between cause and effect, or action and reaction. Because men walking away from such women is just a perfectly normal and perfectly natural and perfectly bloody obvious consequence of these same women having humiliated or in other ways mistreated men for the past 3 to 5 years. So these women have no respect for men, they treat them like garbage. And now that the perfectly natural consequence is slowly settling in and they realize men aren't having it anymore, the only strategy they come up with is to complain. To complain about men. Like, seriously? Are we just going to pretend the aftermath of the Me Too movement didn't happen? Like, please don't get me wrong here. If a man harasses a woman, violates her boundaries, especially physical boundaries, and you know what I mean when I'm putting it like this, but I'm not actually allowed to say this on YouTube, so, go ahead and fill in the blanks. If a guy does any of that, then we must obviously, have a conversation about this, and the guy must obviously be punished within the framework of the law. But here's the fatal thing, okay? A lot of women learned during the Me Too movement that they can get attention online by claiming that a guy had harassed or mistreated them in some way, and suddenly there was an entire online space full of women claiming a guy did this or a guy did that, and at this point it was completely irrelevant what the guy had actually done. And some cases might have been valid, but let's be honest, in most cases there was absolutely nothing wrong in the behavior of the guy who was unlucky enough to get involved in this shit show. In other words, a lot of women just completely overdid it, posting videos and images of men online who'd done absolutely nothing wrong. And in doing so, they put these men's reputations on the line. And for what? For what? For a couple of clicks, for a little bit of online attention. I mean, let that sink in. How selfish and how self-absorbed with your pity craving for attention can you possibly be? And I think these women can't even begin to comprehend the damage they've done. Because here's the thing, okay? Even in 2026, with, feminism and wokeism doing their very best to turn women against men, there's still some good women out there, decent human beings, just looking for another decent human being to be happy with and to have a family with. But now that men are walking away, these good women feel the consequences too and are therefore suffering as a result of what other women did. For example, let's go back to the aforementioned young woman in the gym. Despite being very attractive, she didn't have those, entitled, bratty, ignorant hoe vibes about her at all. In fact, she's probably, pretty alright as a human being. She's probably a very decent human being. But would I ever reach out to her? Absolutely fucking not. Why not? Because the risk of getting burned and humiliated is just way too high. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about having interpreted her signs in a certain way, and maybe I'm wrong in thinking that she isn't one of those, entitled, bratty, ignorant hoes. Maybe she is. So if I say hi, I might get humiliated in front of everyone because women penalize this so heavily. So I wouldn't reach out to her even if I got paid to do it. And apparently all the other men with me in the gym were thinking the exact same way. And yet there are so many bratty, entitled hoes out there, precisely the chick who would crap on you if you so much as looked at her the wrong way, who seem to be genuinely surprised why men no longer reach out when that's really just a bloody natural consequence of their very own behavior. Again, in my opinion, that's a complete failure to comprehend the relation between cause and effect, and a complete failure to show even just a hint of self-critical reflection, and the fact that the best that these women come up with is seriously to complain about men probably means they should be left alone for a while. So if you're a guy and you're watching this, what can you do about it? Well, first of all, don't ever reach out to one of those entitled bratty hoes, let alone allow her into your life, no matter how hot and attractive she might be today. As I said in my previous video, they are just not worth your money, your effort, and your time. What to do instead? Well, that's simple. Work on your body, work on your projects, and work on earning money. If you do this, the few high-quality females left out there will come chase you rather than you having to chase them, and that's the position you want to be in. That's it for today, gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.